What's up guys, Meredith with ExtremeTerrain.com, and today we are checking out the Jeep Licensed by Red Rock HD stubby front bumper with the backlit LED Jeep logo, fitting all 2020 and newer JT Gladiators. Now if you're in search of a heavy-duty front bumper that will make the front end of your JT look wide and aggressive, in addition to adding some Jeep branded styling to your build, this is going to be a great pick for you. In addition to being a great mod to offer some off-road and more rugged appeal to the front end, this front bumper is going to be great for the off-roader who want some additional clearance, protection, and utility that they can add into their build. This will have a super short design to it to cover the front grille area and protect that center portion well, which is going to give you a lot of clearance on either side for larger tires and really good approach angles when you're off-road. The utility will come into play with a top-mounted winch plate rated for a 12,000-pound winch with a standard bolt pattern. You're also getting shackles and shackle mounts welded right to the front of the bumper for recovery situations, and I like that they switch it up with a black shackle here instead of the standard silver or kind of bare looking shackle. You're also getting a bull bar for protection up top, but it does include 2 mounting points for additional lighting if you choose to add it. Now speaking of lighting, this will accommodate for your factory fog lights, which some stubby front bumpers don't have, giving this one the one up, so you won't have to sacrifice any of your lighting. And this Jeep logo in the middle is backlit with a bright LED, which will make your bumper stand out from the rest, adding some of that extra styling and making your Jeep more noticeable when you're driving at night. This will stay true to the heavy-duty name with a steel plate and a steel tube construction with a 2-stage epoxy pre-coat and a textured black powder coat on top. It's going to protect the steel underneath from rusting, and I like that the powder coat is more of a fine texture. It adds a premium appearance and also will match very well with other textured black accessories. Now the LEDs in the front will also be very efficient, drawing low energy, ultimately having a very long lifespan, so you can enjoy this look for years to come. And it does come with a full wiring harness with a switch, so you're not going to have to question when it comes to install. Now the bull bar is bolt-on, as you can see, which will give you some flexibility with some function as well as styling. Now in addition to the bull bar being bolt-on, same goes for the bumper. It's going to be a very straightforward install, and we'll show you how to do that in just a minute. This will come in at about $450, being fairly affordable for a heavy-duty front bumper. Now this has a couple features that allow it to stand apart from other choices in the category, including giving your Jeep that super wide look with the short and boxy appearance, the fog lights in the stubby front bumper that again some don't offer, and that Jeep backed lighting as well as Jeep backed quality. Now those couple features right there will make it a great choice if you don't want to compromise for your lighting, you want that extra Jeep and wide styling, and you want it at an affordable price. Now install will be a 1 out of 3 wrenches on the difficulty meter and should only take you about 2 hours to get the job done. Like I said, this wiring harness is very simple. It's plug and play, so all you have to do is just plug it in and you're ready to go. Now at this point we can head over to our shop and check out a detailed breakdown on how to get this onto your JT at home. So that is going to wrap it up for my review. Let's go ahead and get into the install.
Tools required for this install include an impact gun, a ratchet, a clip remover tool, 7 and 17 millimeter wrenches, a pair of scissors or diagonal cutters, an extension, 7, 8, 10, 13, and 18 millimeter sockets, a swivel adapter, a 16 millimeter swivel socket, 6 millimeter Allen socket, a T20 Torx socket, the included Allen wrench, and a few zip ties. What's up guys? Today we're installing a front bumper on our Gladiator, so let's get started. So our first step to uninstalling our factory bumper is to remove our splash guard. It's held in by 8 push clips and 2 8 millimeter bolts. So we'll grab an 8 millimeter socket for our bolts and a clip remover tool for our clips. So our first step is to remove these 2 8 millimeter bolts. And now we can remove our push clips. Now coming back up top, right in between our bumper and our grille, we have 2 more push clips that we have to remove. So once again, I'll grab that clip remover tool and pop these out. Next, we can come behind the bumper on the passenger side. We have to disconnect our connector for our fog lights. So we'll press in back here and disconnect our harness. So now staying on the passenger side, right by where we disconnected our fog light harness, we can remove this 16mm bolt as well as these two 18mm nuts. Now for the top nut, we're gonna leave that threaded on a few threads just to hold everything in place while we work on the other side. So we'll take that 16mm socket to remove our first bolt. And then we'll grab our 18mm socket to remove our two nuts. And then once again, up top, we're gonna leave it on a few threads just to hold everything in place. Now coming to the inside of our passenger frame rail, we have the same setup with a 16mm bolt and two 18mm nuts. So once again, we'll grab that 16mm socket for the bolt. And then we'll swap out to our 18mm socket for our nuts. And on the inside of our frame rail, we can fully remove both of our nuts since we have that one supporting the weight on the other side. And then we can slide our bracket out of the way. And once we're done with the passenger side, we can repeat those same steps on the driver's side. So now we can go ahead and remove our two nuts that we have left supporting the bumper and fully remove it. So now with our bumper removed, we're gonna have to pull out our fog lights as well as our wiring harness. So we have this big bracket covering our harness. We have four 13mm bolts that we'll pull out to remove that, and then we can remove our harness and our lights. So now we have these four 13mm bolts. We'll grab a 13mm socket to remove these. And then with those removed, we can lift up and remove our bracket. So now we can disconnect our connector from our fog lights by pushing in on the tab and pulling out. And then we'll take a T20 Torx socket to remove the three Torx bolts that are holding in our fog lights. And we're missing one on this side, but there's also one there. Then we'll pop out our light and do the same thing on the other side. And then with those removed, we just need to remove all of these clips holding in our harness with a clip remover tool. To make it a little bit easier to get in here, you can pull out your hooks. And then we'll just work our way across. Now the last thing we need to do before we start assembling our new bumper is to remove this plate right here. It's held in by two 16mm bolts. So I've got my 16mm socket to pop these out. And then you can just pull this up off the hooks and remove it. So now we're ready to assemble our new front bumper. The first thing we're gonna do is mount up our fog lights. We've got new bolts for these. We've got a bolt and a flat washer going through the top, and then another flat washer and a nut on the bottom. We can use the included Allen wrench and a 7mm wrench to tighten all of those down. Now we can just drop our fog light into place. We'll take a bolt with a flat washer, and then another flat washer and nut on the back side. Now there's absolutely no shot of me getting my hand behind this bottom one to put a nut on, so I'm going to use this middle slot. And now we can grab a 7mm wrench for our nut side, as well as the included Allen wrench for our bolt side, and tighten these down. And you can repeat that same process for the other fog light. So now we're ready to install our top bar. Now, if you don't want to run this, there are also block off plates so you can put your bolts through to cover up those holes. We're not going to be doing that. We're going to be putting this bar on. So we have a bolt with a flat washer that's going to be going through the top, and then a flat washer, lock washer, and a nut for the bottom side. And then we'll use a 6mm Allen socket for the bolt side and a 17mm wrench to tighten it all down. So now we'll raise our bar up into place and throw our bolt through the top, and then get a flat washer, lock washer, and nut onto the back side. And we'll do the same thing for our other two holes. And then once you have all those installed, you can take your 17mm wrench to hold your nut and take a 6mm Allen socket to tighten down the bolt. And then you can do that same thing on the other side. Next, we can install our bolt plates. We're gonna go stud at the top here, and then we have our retaining clips to put on top. Slide this in from the bottom, pull our stud up, and then we can just push that clip into place. And then we'll do that same thing on the other side here. And then you can give it a little twist to hold it a little bit snugger up there. And then you can do that same thing on the other side. Next, we can reinstall our fog light harness. Now, one thing to make sure of is that the connector that's going to the body connector is on the passenger side. And once you verified that, we can just plug in our two connectors. And then I'm going to give us a little bit of slack on our connector over here. And then I'm going to bunch up all of the excess of our harness. And then take a zip tie to clean this wiring up a little bit. And then you can take a pair of scissors or diagonal cutters to cut off the excess. And I'm just going to throw another one on this side, just get it a little bit tighter. And I'm going to take one more zip tie and put it through this bracket here. Hold that nice and tight and make sure you can't see the harness once the bumper is installed. Now, before we get our bumper mounted up, the last thing we need to do is get our wiring all situated. I've got our harness laid across the engine bay, how it's going to go. I've got our switch running over to the driver's side so we can put that through the firewall. I've got our battery terminal connectors right next to our battery, and then our harness for our one connector going down towards the floor. So we're going to start off on our battery, connecting our two terminal connectors. I'm going to take a 10mm socket to remove this nut on our positive terminal. And then we can get our red wire. Now these connectors look pretty similar. Our red's going to our positive. So slide that on. And thread our nut back on, and then we can tighten that back down. And we'll replace our cover. And then we can grab our negative. We're gonna remove this 10mm nut. And we'll slide our connector on, thread our nut back on, and then we can tighten that down, same 10mm socket. Next, we can take our wire with our connector that's gonna be running down towards our bumper. I'm gonna run it under this little tab for our intake, and then we can drop it right down through here and it'll come out by the bottom of our grill here. And we can drop this down, tuck our wire, and then we can go back by the battery tray to zip tie up all of our excess. So now we're gonna come back to our battery tray. We're gonna zip up all of this excess wire, and then we can tuck it right down in here. So we just bunch all of this up. And now since we have so much excess, I'm gonna use a couple zip ties here. Take a pair of scissors or diagonal cutters to cut off the excess. And we can get the other side as well. And then we can just tuck that down out of the way. Next, we can grab our wire for our switch. That's gonna be running over to the driver's side. Now, we have these that we can zip tie it to keep it up and out of the way. And now coming to the other side, I'm gonna zip tie to this coolant reservoir bracket as well as right here. And then our grommet is right down here, right next to the brake booster where we're gonna be running our switch into the cabin. So now if we look at the outside of our brake booster, there's that grommet hole right there. Might be a little bit hard to see. We're gonna take our switch and we're gonna slide it through that hole. And then we'll go inside the cabin and pull that through and mount it up to our dash. So now in the driver's seat, we can grab our switch. You can mount this anywhere you'd like. I'm gonna go right here. So we'll just peel the double-sided tape backing off, and we can just line that up and stick it down. And now we can come back to our engine bay. We have a little bit of excess wiring from our switch, so we're just gonna bunch that up, and we have a harness running right here that we can zip tie it to. So now we're ready to get our bumper mounted up to our frame horns. Now I've got a bolt with a flat washer and a lock washer that's gonna be going into that nut side of the bolt plate, and then a flat washer, lock washer, and a nut for the stud half of the bolt plate. So I'm gonna grab myself a buddy to help me lift this up. He's gonna put the bolts in on his side while I put mine in on my side, and then we can go back and tighten everything down. So now I've got my buddy and we're ready to get this bumper mounted up to our frame horns. Now with our bolts and nuts installed, we can take an 18mm socket to tighten these down. And then you can do the same exact thing on the other side of this frame horn and the same thing on the other side. Now, last thing we need to do is just connect our connector for our LED light as well as our connector for our fog lights. So fog light connector, plug right in. And then we can grab our harness for our LED, connect the connector. And then we're just going to zip tie this right up to our harness that we zip tied earlier. Another zip tie. Tighten that down. Take your scissors or diagonal cutters, cut off the excess of that zip tie. Now lastly, we can install our D-rings. So we have a threaded side and an open side. We'll put this through and thread it into place. You can put this on either way. Everyone has their preference. And then you'll do that same thing on the other side. So that'll wrap up this review and install of the Jeep licensed by Red Rock HD stubby front bumper with backlight LED Jeep logo for your 2020 and newer Jeep Gladiator JT. Thank you for watching, and for all things Gladiator, keep it right here at extremeterrain.com.